you. Thank you. Can everyone hear that? Is that fine? Good. It's great to be here. Obviously, I want to thank my wife, Casey. She's starring in another ad right now. Maybe you guys have seen it, and I know every time people see it, they definitely appreciate. And she is, without a doubt, my best supporter, and we're really fortunate to have her on the team, and obviously I'm very fortunate to have married her. It is hectic around our house, as she mentioned. We have 2 kids under the age of 2, 22-month-old daughter, 6-month-old son, although actually the end of the month it'll be 23 months and 7 months. So we come and go a lot. My mom, bless her heart, is a retired nurse, so she is staying with us most of the time, and she can watch. So Casey will go campaign. I'm obviously always gone. This is my 8th event today. Miami, a bunch of things, Ormond Beach, Lakeland here. So, but it's fun. But it's really just hectic around the house. And so my daughter, she's 22 months, and she loves to brush her teeth. And so what she does is she goes in our bathroom, and she will grab toothbrush and toothpaste and walk around and brush her teeth. Okay. Well, one time she was doing that, and when it came time, when she was done, she put the toothpaste in the diaper bag. And she took out of the diaper bag Desantis, which they use to soothe their rumps when they get rashes. But she put the Desantis on the sink in our bathroom. Well, I'm going 100 miles an hour, so I don't know. So one day I'm going to get ready, and I do a tube, and it was white coming out of the tube, and I do it, and I started to brush my teeth, and I'm like, man, something is wrong with this. And I think I was on the shelf, no speeches for like the next 24 hours, but that's just the par for the course. So, well, it's an honor to be here. I'm excited about the race. I'm excited about how things are going for us. I'm also happy to say that sometimes in politics, people will say, oh, there's not a dime's worth of difference between the candidates. Who cares? It doesn't matter this or that. People cannot say that about our governor's race. I mean, we have 2 very stark pathways here that we can take, and I'm proud to say that of the 2 of us, I'm the only candidate that has served the country in uniform, serving in Iraq, serving in Mayport, doing that. My opponent is a career politician. He literally got elected to the Tallahassee City Commission right out of college, has never worked ever in anything outside of politics his entire career, and it shows. I'm also proud, well, I don't know if I'm proud, but I think this is a distinction that I'm the only one of the 2 of us, when asked, are you a socialist or are you for free enterprise? I will say I'm for free enterprise. I don't hem and haw about it. I don't say, oh, there's the labels, all this. No, in that. And I'm also, relieved to say, well, not relieved, that's just how, it'd be expected that this would be the case, at least vis-a-vis me, but I'm the only one of the 2 of us who can credibly say he is not under FBI investigation for corruption. So you have a very clear choice in a number of respects. One of the issues that I think is really, really significant with this race that we've kind of taken for granted for years in Florida because we've had such good trends most places outside of Tallahassee is public safety and fighting crime. We're at almost a 50-year low in Florida. In the last couple decades, it's been a steady decline. That has not happened by accident. That has happened because we've had good policies. When people are dangerous and they commit crimes to hurt people, we held them accountable and we got them off the streets. We had elected officials who would stand by the men and women in law enforcement and have their backs, and we devoted the resources necessary to keeping our community safe. And so, as a result of that, in fact, Florida would not be doing as well economically if we didn't have low crime. That's just the bottom line. You remember how tourists, when they used to get harassed by criminals, that was terrible for our economy. So that is something that I think some people have taken for granted. But if you look at Tallahassee under Andrew Gillum's mayorship, it's had the highest crime rate in Florida for 4 years in a row. Last year, Tallahassee had more murders than any time in the history of the city. And in fact, one of the candidates running to succeed Andrew as mayor is his former chief of staff. And this guy is sending out literature to people in Tallahassee saying, record number of murders last year. Something needs to change. We need leadership. Yeah, you do need leadership because Andrew has failed to keep Tallahassee safe. And it's not just the murders and the sexual assaults and the violent crime. It's also a city that's ridden with property crimes. People get their homes burglarized, their cars stolen. So it is an absolute disaster, and he has failed the people of Tallahassee. But this is not just pure incompetence. Yeah, I mean, he's not incompetent, but that's not the only reason. It is something that flows from his radical left-wing ideology. There was an article on Real Clear Politics the other day that talked about, how he's aligned himself with groups that are militantly anti-police. He's endorsed this group called the Dream Defenders. And he's actually on a debate stage in the Democratic primary. He says, I want to give a shout out to the Dream Defenders. I'll stand by you. I'll stand with you. Well, what does this group do? He actually signed a pledge saying he would support their agenda, this manifesto that they have called the Freedom Papers. Well, you read that, and the stuff they say about law enforcement is vile, it's disgusting. They say that the police and prisons have no place in society. They say money needs to be defunded from law enforcement and put into welfare programs. Now, you do that. When you do that, I mean, you're basically begging for a crime spree. So he's aligning with groups that target law enforcement, that politicize law enforcement. That puts a target on the backs of the men and women in law enforcement. That makes their job more difficult, and it makes our communities less safe. So this ideology, if that were to be able to put into place here in the state of Florida, you would have crime increase throughout the state. There's just no doubt about it. And this group, Dream Defenders, by the way, what's one of the main things they want to do? They only have a few issues they get involved with. One of the main things they want to do, boycott, divest, and sanction from the state of Israel. BDS. They say Israel's a genocidal apartheid state. That's anti-Semitism. I'm sorry. That is dead wrong. I would never accept an endorsement from a group that boycotted, divested, and sanctioned from Israel. In fact, when I'm governor, we have an anti-BDS law. When companies boycott Israel, we're putting them on the list, and we're going to boycott them. They are not going to do business with the state of Florida. It's just that simple. That's a no-brainer. That's not even a difficult decision. I was the leader in Congress in facilitating the president's decision to move our embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. I've been advocating to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's eternal and indivisible capital. Andrew opposes having our embassy in Jerusalem. He opposes recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's eternal and indivisible capital. And in fact, when Hamas terrorists were overrunning the border in May and Israel was defending itself, Andrew Gillum said that Israel is using what Hamas is doing as a pretext to engage in disproportionate response. Give me a break. Israel has a right to defend itself, and the people who are peddling that garbage are anti-Israel, and they are not standing for the values in the state of Florida. And that's Andrew Gillum. That's who he is. The other thing is you look and think about, okay, Florida's economy is really on a roll right now. Our unemployment rate's 3.7%. We've been able to succeed, largely because we've had a much better tax climate than other states, and so people leave some of these states that have bad policies and they come to Florida. I mean, Jacksonville's been able to get corporate headquarters to relocate here, and that's not because, look, Florida is good, don't get me wrong. Jacksonville's nice, these other places are nice, but it's not just having a nice state. You got to have good policy so it makes sense for people to come and be able to create jobs. And so that's what Florida has done. The states that haven't done that have had problems. Well, and now we have a situation where we got rid of the subsidy for high tax states with their state taxes. So we've never had stronger incentive for people to want to invest in Florida. So it's a historic opportunity. So as governor, I'm going to welcome that. I'm going to capitalize on that. We'll build new industries, expand industries, create higher paying jobs, and we'll continue the economic momentum. Andrew's policy, his big idea is in the face of this historic opportunity, what does he want to do? He wants to impose a 40% tax increase. That's going to cost people jobs here in Florida. It's going to cause businesses to relocate out of Florida, and it will do more than anything to stop the flow of investment into Florida from other states. It would be a historic mistake. It would be shooting ourselves in the foot. But that's just the tax increase he's willing to tell you about. The James Madison Institute analyzed all the spending proposals that he has, and they've said that in order to pay for it, you would need to either impose a sales tax of 38%, which is, statewide is 6 now, so 38%, or impose a state income tax. There's no other way you would be able to do it. And if we went down that road, that's the end of Florida in terms of its economic future. Done, kaput, put it down. So that cannot happen. But this is a guy at every step of his career has always tried to raise taxes. He wanted a higher sales tax in Tallahassee. When he was on the Tallahassee City Commission, he voted to raise property taxes. As mayor, he imposed a stiff property tax increase on middle-income taxpayers in Tallahassee. And of course, he wants higher federal taxes. He opposed the tax cuts that were passed in 2017. So at every step of the way, he puts the burden on the taxpayer for more taxes. He never looks to reform government or do anything like that. This is Bernie Sanders brought to Florida. So we cannot allow that to happen. That will totally ruin our economic momentum. And I can tell you this, as governor, I'm going to continue good policies. We'll expand and we'll build off what's worked. And we'll make Florida the best place to be for economic activity and job creation. We can do it. We just got to go out and vote. So let's get it done. The other thing is this is how crazy this would be. I mean, I think if you're somebody who's working hard, you have a job, you have benefits, health care benefits, all these other stuff, the government needs to butt out and leave you alone. That's not what Andrew thinks. Andrew supports single-payer health care, and he would do it federally, which would abolish Medicare for seniors and force them on a single payer. It would abolish everybody's private insurance and force them on the single payer. But he said short of that, he would do a confederacy of single payer with California, New York, and Florida. So think about that. Your taxes go up. You lose your insurance that you have if you have it on your own and you go on a single payer. And then we send all the money to California so they can give health care to illegal immigrants. How the heck would that be good policy? I mean, this is just absolutely nuts. So he represents a threat with he views Florida as a petri dish for George Soros-style experimentation. So you would end up seeing your health arrangements attacked, seniors, all of this stuff would be up for grabs if he had his way. So, saying this stuff, like these left-wing cliches, they have real consequences for hardworking taxpayers in the state of Florida, and it's very negative if we allow him to get away with it, so we can't do that. The other thing is we have an opportunity with these Supreme Court appointments for the state of Florida to really make a positive impact for the rule of law. As you know, we have a 7-member court. 4 of the justices are liberal activists and have been liberal activists for a generation. 3 of the justices are solid constitutionalists. The next governor, when they come in, they will be able to replace 3 of the liberal activist justices because they've hit mandatory retirement age. So when I come in as governor, I'll be able to appoint 3 solid constitutionalists in the mold of Justice Clarence Thomas, who understand the proper role of the court is to apply the law and Constitution as it's actually written, not to legislate from the bench, not to rewrite the law, not to rewrite the Constitution, not to impose your personal views on the rest of the state, but to actually apply the law as written. And when we do that successfully, and we will have ended judicial activism in Florida for a generation. That's a huge, huge deal, and that's worth fighting for. We have a problem in our country with drug abuse and drug addiction, with the opioid epidemic, and part of that has obviously been how prescription medications have worked over the years. The legislature's done some stuff to really rein that in. If you look at the problem now, most of it's being driven by street opioids like fentanyl. And how is that getting into our country? Well, China is manufacturing a lot of this stuff. They send it to Central America, and then they bring it across, our border. We do interdict a lot of it, but some of it, gets in. Well, I think that's a big problem. I think that we all know people who have had either loved ones, or we know loved ones who have had problems with drug addiction. So this is something that we need to fight. Now, Andrew is running on open borders and abolishing ICE. So tell me how that benefits our fight against the opioids, to just let the drugs come into the country. You have a caravan now coming across Central America into Mexico heading for. Andrew's policy would be, you just get to come in. There's no rule of law. Just come right in. We don't know who you are. You just come in, and that's it. That is not going to keep our state safe. That's not going to be good for taxpayers. That's not going to be good for the rule of law. So how are you going to abolish ICE and keep the people of Florida safe? You can't do it. I think we need a secure border. I support that. As governor, we're going to make sure if people are in our state illegally, if they're involved in criminal activity, they're gone. We're going to give them to the federal government, and we're going to get them out of Florida. It's that simple. I'm not going to release them back into society. Andrew says he will not cooperate with Donald Trump's ICE. Okay, well, what are you going to do when people are dangerous to society? So that has real serious consequences in terms of rule of law and the immigration system. So look, this is, I don't think you could have a clearer choice here. We need to let everybody know that. I mean, I think the press is not interested in exposing Andrew at all. And so that's really going to rely on us and our hard work to show that this is not someone who's good for Florida, that my record of leadership, and that's another thing. I mean, leadership matters. When Andrew was on the Tallahassee City Commission, he voted to give himself tens of thousands of dollars in additional retirement benefits at taxpayer expense. And then he turned around and raised property taxes on people. So how is that a deal? More taxes for you and more benefits for him? I was the opposite. When I got to Congress, I said, I'm here to serve the taxpayers. I'm not here to feather my own nest. So I am going to decline the pension. I'm going to decline the health care subsidies. And I'm not going to let Congress raise its own pay. And so we stopped that. But that's leadership. That's somebody who's willing to be in office to do things, not to be somebody. So it's important that we work hard over the next 2.5 weeks. I think that we're doing very well. I think we have really strong momentum. But, Florida is always a very hotly contested area. I think we have to make sure in Northeast Florida, that we really run up serious margins. I mean, we need everybody in Duval, but we also need the neighboring counties to come in big for us as they normally do. Nassau's big, St. John's big, Clay big. These are very, very important areas. So we need your help to be making sure we get the vote out and making sure anyone who voted for the president needs to come out and vote in this midterm election. I mean, it's just that simple. You can't sit on the sidelines. And if we just do that, I'm confident that we're going to have a good night here in the state of Florida because, ultimately, voters are smart. They look at our state. They see a lot of good things happening. We've got issues we've got to address. I mean, I just got endorsed by the Everglades Trust because of working on the water quality and working on Everglades. I've been doing that for years. We got to do that. We've got to deal with transportation. We've got to deal with more infrastructure. There's a whole bunch of issues we have to deal with to make Florida better. But what we don't want to do is let this train be totally derailed by somebody running on a democratic socialist agenda. I mean, that would just be a tragedy for us, for our kids and grandkids. So we can't let that happen. So my ask to you is, over the next 2.5 weeks, take whatever action you can, get people to vote, have people send in money, knock on doors, make phone calls, take whatever action you can, because by doing so, you'll be helping us protect Florida for generations to come. And it's important, and I need your help. So thank you, and I'll leave you with this. In the words of our friend at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, Ron Desantis, proud veteran, a great leader, a tough, brilliant cookie who would make a great governor of Florida. Thank you, guys. Thank you.